Imagine spending your life serving your country, sacrificing every piece of yourself, and when the moment comes to watch your own child graduate, the very child you raised alone, you're told you don't belong. That's where our story begins. Stay with me until the end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. And if this story touches your heart, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because stories like these are worth being heard. The school gymnasium was filled with banners, balloons, and the hum of proud families waiting for their children's names to be called. In the far corner sat Daniel Cole, a single dad and a decorated veteran who had spent years in silence about his past. His clothes weren't flashy, just a pressed old shirt, clean jeans, and boots that carried the dust of too many miles. He looked at the stage where his son, Ryan, would soon walk across, the boy he had raised while carrying his own scars from war. But as the ceremony neared, two guards in crisp uniforms approached Daniel. Their faces were stern, their tone unfeeling. "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave. This section is for invited family only." Daniel's heart sank. Invited family. He had raised his boy alone. There was no one else. "I'm his father," Daniel said, his voice steady but soft, hoping they'd understand. The taller guard shook his head. "Look, you don't look like you belong here. We have donors and officials in this area. Please step outside." The sting hit harder than any bullet Daniel had ever taken. All those years of service, of watching brothers fall beside him, of holding the line when others ran, none of it mattered here. In this moment, he wasn't a veteran. He was just unwanted. Around him, parents whispered. Some looked away. Some looked at him with pity. Ryan, sitting with his graduating class, caught sight of his father being escorted out. His chest tightened with shame, not for his father, but for the injustice of it all. This was the man who had been both mom and dad, who had patched his wounds, helped him study, stayed up late after long shifts just to make sure he never felt alone. And now he was being told he didn't belong. As Daniel stepped toward the exit, his boots dragging on the polished floor, the double doors swung open. The room went silent. 6 men walked in, broad shoulders, sharp eyes, quiet authority in every step. They weren't dressed in uniforms, but their presence was unmistakable. Navy SEALs. The guards froze, unsure. Parents turned, whispering nervously. The SEALs walked straight past the crowd and toward Daniel. At the front of the group was Commander Blake, a man who had once served beside Daniel in the most dangerous corners of the world. "Is there a problem here?" Blake's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a storm. The guards stammered. No, sir, we were just disrespecting a man who gave everything for this country." Another SEAL interrupted, his jaw tight. "You're asking the wrong man to leave." The 6 of them surrounded Daniel, but not in protection, no, in recognition. They clapped his shoulder, stood beside him like brothers, and turned their sharp gazes to the guards. Suddenly, the room wasn't whispering anymore. It was silent. Silent in awe. Silent in shame. Daniel, who had kept his service hidden from almost everyone, lowered his eyes. He had never wanted recognition. He had only wanted to be there for his son. But here, in this moment, the truth of his life was written in the faces of the men who came for him. Ryan's name was called. The boy walked across the stage, his hands trembling, his eyes locked not on the crowd, but on his father, the man who had been told to leave but was now standing taller than ever, flanked by warriors who owed him their lives. Ryan accepted his diploma, then, instead of returning to his seat, he walked straight down the steps. The entire gym watched as he ran into his father's arms. "I'm proud of you, Dad," Ryan whispered, his voice breaking. The SEALs saluted Daniel, one by one, in front of the entire school. For a man who had fought wars in silence, who had endured loneliness and rejection, this moment was heavier than any battlefield. The guards who had tried to remove him lowered their heads, ashamed. The principal hurried forward, offering apologies, but Daniel simply shook his head. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for my son." And in that moment, the crowd erupted. Applause thundered through the gym, not just for Ryan, but for the father who had raised him. Strangers rose to their feet, clapping with tears in their eyes, realizing they had almost let prejudice erase the presence of a hero. That night, as the sun set and the parking lot emptied, Daniel stood with his son and the SEALs. The world outside still didn't know his story, but it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that his son knew. That the truth had finally shined when it needed to most. Sometimes, the strongest battles are fought in silence. Sometimes, the greatest victories aren't medals, but the pride in your child's eyes. And sometimes, when the world tries to tell you that you don't belong, brothers, family, and truth will walk through the door to remind you that you always did. So if this story moved you, if it reminded you of the unseen sacrifices people make every day, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like Daniel's aren't just stories, they're reminders of the strength we carry, the respect we owe, and the love that always deserves to be honored.